UNO has always been an expanding university, constantly moving forward. But as we move forward, we must also look back to where we began. Let's go back in time with the people who remember UNO the way it was. Join us for Reflections in Time.
It's a beautiful day. It's fall of 1990, last part of October, and as I often am when I do these reflections in time, I'm sitting in a lovely room in our new, relatively new, Health, Physical Education and Recreation building. These tapes that you're viewing, probably either in the Alumni House or over in our University Library, have been made over a period of, 15 years or so. What I've tried to do is gather people together one by one, occasionally two at a time, and visit with them about themselves and about this university where many of them spent 10, 20, 30 and more years. And that's what we're going to do today. My guest today has been here just about 40 years on the nose, and I think she has many things to share with us, and I'm so happy that she was able to join me for a visit on this October day. I'm talking about Dr. Vera Lundahl, who's a member of our faculty and associate professor in the School of Physical Education, Health and Recreation. Did I do that about right?
Just about right.
Now, you know, Vera, we've said hi for a lot of years and visited a little bit now and then, but I don't think I ever asked you, where did you come from?
Well, I was a PK.
Oh.
You know what a PK is?
I'm one too.
You are?
Yes.
For those of people who might not know, it's a preacher's kid.
Right.
And my dad was a Lutheran minister.
So was mine.
And he was too. And so we moved around a lot. And I was born in Sacramento, California.
Oh, on the West Coast.
Yes, but I left at a very early age and came to a couple of, well, we lived in three places. I wasn't always with my folks, but they lived in three places in Nebraska and moved to very different places in the Midwest. And we had, during the time that I grew up, my growing up years, that had the most influence on me as a person, I think, was a little country church out about 18 miles west of Lincoln, Nebraska.
Is that right? Is it still there?
No, it isn't. And it's very sad. I went by a few years ago and it's all run down. It looks terrible. The
It's
church
terrible to go try to go back,
and I wish I hadn't gone back. Yeah.
Why was it so special?
It was special because, well, my dad, of course, was kind of sedate, formal, stern father. Yeah. My mother, on the other hand, was a free spirit. And I think I got the free spirit from her. And living out in the country when you're a child is a wonderful experience.
Oh, yes, I agree.
We had sidewalk from our house all the way around this corner up here and all the way up to the front of the church and back. And during my spare time, I did a lot of roller skating.
Oh, and
most
country kids couldn't. They didn't have the sidewalk.
I had all this wonderful sidewalk, and it was a great activity for me. And I remember I used to wear out roller skate wheels all of the time.
You must have done a lot.
I did a lot, and I often thought, you know, my folks never said a thing about ordering a new set of wheels for me from Montgomery Ward catalog. And those were days when it was right out of the Depression, and I know we didn't have a lot of money, but I know those wheels always came. And I can remember that one of the corners, we turned quite a few corners as we went up to the church. One of the corners was a particularly disastrous corner. And it just challenged us to really take it on. So we would go flying through this corner and usually trying to do it on one foot. And there happened to be some cracks in the sidewalk. If you hit those cracks just right, you wiped out on that corner. Well, you know, we tried not to.
Real challenge. You said we. Does that mean you
Well,
had some other sisters,
I had,
brothers, or friends?
a
or
couple of sisters and
What
a
did
brother,
you-
and the one sister did some roller skating with me, but I usually did it by myself. And then I was a ball player. I loved to play ball.
Oh,
and my brother,
athletically minded early in life here.
my brother was 6 years older than I was, and I can remember the two of us playing catch with the hardest softball he could find. And we would stand quite a distance from each other, and we would throw it back and forth. And our whole intent was to try to sting the other person's hands. And it was really fun, even if it hurt. You know, I got some doozers, you know, but I gave him some pretty good ones too, even if I was 6 years younger than him.
Sounds like early life was fun.
Yeah, it was fun, and I did a lot of ball playing. Then there was also near our place a pasture that led down into a little valley, and there was a little brook down there.
Oh, it sounds nice.
And I spent so much time roaming that area. We had a wonderful dog, and he was my companion. And I spent so much time just roaming that area, spending time sitting out in the peaceful quietness of the beauty of the country. And the dog and I communicated, and I did a lot of deep thinking in those days.
That's a nice way to grow up, I think. Right?
Yes, I have some wonderful memories. One of the things I remember in the springtime, I would sit in the grass, and the dog was beside me, and I'd hear the meadowlarks. And you know, they have a little triply little,
very pretty sound.
Yeah, really pretty sound. And so I started to try to imitate those meadowlarks. And I thought maybe I can get them to return my call, you know, if I return their call. And I worked on it for quite a while. And pretty soon I really thought those meadowlarks were talking to me.
That's great.
But one of the things I think as I look back on my life, we might call it from the era of the one-room country schoolhouse to the era of computers, because that really scans it all. I went to a one-room country schoolhouse.
So far, it sounds like you and I live in the same house, practically.
Is that right?
One-room schoolhouse. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yes, and it was tremendous. I remember my folks always went to the school board meetings because they felt that they wanted to have their children have the best education they could possibly have. And none of the other parents ever came, but my parents were very influential. Well, one of the things they wanted, of course, for us was teachers who had college educations.
Yeah.
And sometimes I guess they could teach without such.
Just a little normal training after high school.
Right.
I did it, I think.
So one time, for my 5th, 6th, and 7th grade, we got a teacher who had a college education. And when that teacher came into the room, there was something so special about her, and she really influenced my life. One of the things that shocked all of the students, we had about 18 people in the classes of grades 1 to 8. And at recess time, she said, "Okay, now let's go outside and play softball." And
you
we
liked
looked at
that.
it. Oh, did we like that? And most of the other teachers sat and read books, and I think they were just so anxious for recess to come. And I remember some of them doing their fingernails and, you know, all. But this teacher, Miss Miller, went out with us and played with us. Well, of course, she started us on 2 teams of softball against each other.
Yeah, with 18, that'd be about right.
Yeah, that was just about right. And since I could throw a pretty fast underhand ball, it started to become pretty wicked at that time. I got to be pitcher.
Thanks to your brother
yeah,
playing
thanks to my
catch.
brother, yes. And my sister, who was 2 years older than I was a terrific first baseman. And Miss Miller played catch, usually.
Oh, she played on the team, too.
She wouldn't sit out. No, she played catch. And then, of course, all the other talented kids were in the background doing their thing, too. And I remember one picnic at the end of the school year. All the parents came, and Miss Miller challenged the team that she'd been coaching all year. She challenged the men to a game. And I'll never quite know what really happened, but we did beat them.
Is that right?
We beat them, and I think they were trying their hardest.
You'd like to think so.
I'd like to think so, at least. So that's something I really don't know. But the other thing that Miss Miller did was she pushed me in every way she could possibly push me. She even had me singing solos at picnics and at programs and things like that. And I really wasn't that great a singer, but she did that. And I don't know if it happened, did you go to a one-room schoolhouse?
No, indeed I did.
Yeah.
For about 8 years.
Yes, well we had very often, like the 3rd and 4th grade, we'd have classes together, 5th and 6th, 7th and 8th. Well, when I was in 7th grade, I took a lot of my classes with the 8th grade. And Miss Miller all of a sudden sent a note home to my folks at near the end of the school year, and I knew that the county exams were coming up for the 8th graders, and all the rural kids had to take 8th grade exams to pass into high school.
I know those exams.
So I was 7th grade, and she wrote a note to my folks and said, you know, Vera can pass the 8th grade exams with flying colors. Would you like to let her do that? See, that's how she kept pushing me.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember my folks really deliberating over this for a long time, and I remember hearing the word mature and that sort of thing, you know. And finally they said yes, okay.
And you were happy about it yourself?
Oh yes. I didn't want to stay in country school anymore and do the same thing in the 8th grade that I'd done in 7th grade.
Indeed not.
So I took the exams and came out with flying colors. One class that I had never had, I got an 88 in. It was a health class, which is kind of strange because I'm in health and PE now. And that brought down my average. My whole average was 95 and 7/8. So I thought, well, that's all right. And my folks thought maybe they had done the right thing.
Oh,
so
it sounds like they had.
So I skipped the 8th grade and went right into high school. And the thing that I remember most about high school was trying to prove to my friends and the kids in town that I wasn't the stereotype PK, because that meant a lot to me as a teenager, you know. And so my sister and I often sit and talk for hours about the experiences we had, but that would take another whole hour of TV to tell about those wonderful stories that we've got about the days that we were in high school together.
Now, did you live in town? Did you come on a bus?
No, we lived in town there. Yeah, well, we had moved from the country church to Gothenburg, Nebraska.
Oh, I see.
Yes, and that's where I graduated from high school then.
What a small high school at that time.
There were about 60 people in my class.
But a lot bigger than country 18 school,
Yes, right, a lot bigger than that. But then after I graduated from high school, the war was on, and the University of Colorado had a wonderful program that I thought sounded great. It was a Navy Nurse Corps
This
program.
was the early 1940s, probably?
Yeah, well, 45. 45 I graduated.
All right.
And my folks thought, too, that would be a wonderful thing if I got into the program and stayed there for a couple of years. I would get free tuition for the rest of the time and be a registered nurse with a bachelor's degree.
Oh, wow.
So we thought, well, that's great. So, of course, the war ended during the year that I was there, and the program went out of whack. And I thought at that time that maybe I better get into something else that was a little closer to some of my interests, and I transferred to UNL in Lincoln at that time because the tuition, out-of-state tuition, was really high, and I became a PE major at UNL.
Goes back to your softball background, maybe?
Yes, right. I guess so. You know, I don't think I really thought too much about it until later that I had made a good decision in that way. But we had a wonderful program in physical education there, and the one thing that I do remember was the great way that my parents worked and put me through college. They wanted me to go to college. And my mother gave at least 30 piano lessons a week for I don't know how many years.
Oh, wow.
To send me to school. And I'll never forget her for that.
No, indeed not.
It was tough going to school. I had a job. I also lived for my room at a professor's home, and every night I came home, they had left all their dishes from the whole day on the counters, and I had to wash all the dishes
every day
and clean up the kitchen. And you know, that got to be old. But it was,
in a hurry, I'll bet.
But then I also cleaned the house once a week, and every morning at 6 o'clock I got up and got the professor's breakfast, which consisted of oatmeal and coffee. And he ate breakfast every morning by himself at the end of this long white linen table, and I'd go out the door to catch my bus to go to school, and he was sitting there, no TV, and I don't think he had a little radio. He just sat there staring at the walls eating his oatmeal. So that was great, but I also had to eat lunch and supper somewhere, and I found on the edge of the UNL campus a little hamburger shop that had, would you believe, hamburgers for 15 cents a piece?
Oh, yes, I believe it.
And milk for 5 cents. And that became my lunch and very often my supper.
You had plenty of hamburgers.
I had plenty of hamburgers. But I had a friend, I think she was a little worse off than I was, and I thought of her name last night, Willadine Bryant. She was a PE major too, and in her locker she had a box of soda crackers and a box of tea bags. And that's what she lived on.
Soda crackers and tea?
And tea.
What a lunch to look forward to.
Well, we were just happy to be there, and
Yes.
it was in the days when they expected a great deal of their PE majors. We were supposed to be terrific at all of the sports. In fact, we would take as many as we needed to take to get our intermediate rating from the teachers, practical exam and a written exam.
Were you heading in the way of teaching?
Yes.
Were you thinking about teaching and
yes.
coaching and things like that at that
Teaching,
time?
yes, very definitely.
Uh-huh.
And I remember that I had not had PE in high school. We had a gym, but we just didn't have PE.
Mm-hmm.
And so I got there, and I hadn't played much basketball, and that was one of the things they thought a PE major should be able to do. And I remember taking basketball for 4 years before I got my intermediate rating.
Took you a while to learn to dribble, huh?
Yeah, well, it took a while to train me. But then I graduated in 1954 in January.
Mm-hmm.
And there were 2 of us graduating from the physical education department at that time. And the other girl got a job down at Stevens College. She was a real sports person, and I was sports and dance. And I got a job at University of Omaha.
How did that come about, Vera?
Well, the opening came up, and the head of our department at Lincoln was very well known. And everybody said, if she recommended you, you got the job you wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that I came for an interview. Now, I lived at that time, I got away from the professor's house. I lived in a co-op house.
Done making oatmeal.
Yeah. And I didn't have anything really to wear, since I was kind of financially distressed, to a interview
for a job.
So the girls in the house the night before I left got together. There must have been 24 girls or so, and they got their clothes out that fit me, and they suited me up with a suit and a blouse, and I think even shoes. And in those days, of course, we wore gloves.
Sure.
And a hat. And there I was, and it was January, so I had to have a coat. So someone loaned me their coat even. So here, I took the bus up here, and I'd never seen the university before, and the bus driver let me off right up here, and I saw all the people that I was supposed to see. And
who were the first people you talked to? Can you remember any of them?
No, I don't remember. I remember talking to Dr. Bale.
Oh yeah, you wouldn't forget that.
No, and I just don't remember very many of the other people, but I do remember Dean Thompson.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if physical education was in arts and science at that time. And
I think it might have been in applied arts or something like that.
Yeah, I kind of think it
in
was.
art.
Well, he was one of my big interviews, and he was my last one. So after this big day, I sat in his office, and the secretary said, he's out right now, but he'll be in a little while. So I sat there thinking about my day and wondering what Dean Thompson was going to be like and what kind of an interview this was going to be. And pretty soon this big man came dashing in past me, almost into his office, and his secretary said, Dean Thompson, Vera Lundahl, who's applying for the job in physical education, is here for her interview. And he stood there. I think we shook hands. I'm not sure. But he stood there, and he looked me up and down from my borrowed shoes to my borrowed hat. And he made one remark. He said, "She looks pretty good to me." And he went into his office. That's the last time I saw him.
That was the interview.
That was my interview. Well, I got the job.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
And what a memorable interview.
So I always remembered Dean Thompson for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I graduated in January.
Mm-hmm.
And I just want to say one little thing about my mom at the graduation. It brings tears almost to my eyes. I have never seen such a look of pride on anybody's face as my mom when I graduated.
That makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it?
It really did. And, you know, to have her support and everything was just terrific.
Sounded like you had tremendous family support for what you wanted to do.
I really did. Well, then I graduated on Saturday. I started teaching here on Monday. There was another teacher in the department.
And that was it?
Yes, just two of us in the women's physical education department. And the requirement was for all the colleges, so there were loads of students taking PE.
Oh yeah, probably. Well, we had 1,000 or more students here, 1,500 maybe, something like that.
Right, right. Well, the first day that I was on the job, do you know what she did? She called in sick.
She knew what she was doing.
She knew what she was doing, and I think she'd been waiting for somebody to relieve her. And, you know, just being out of college and seeing all these students coming to class, I went out. And I remember I taught golf that day. I taught badminton. I taught basketball, you know, after all my 4 years of experience.
You were ready for basketball.
I was ready for basketball. I taught modern dance. I taught PE for elementary school. It just went on and on. I would fly back to my office and find out what was next and try to remember as much as I knew about it. But she did retire at the end of that, that semester.
Did that leave you alone then?
That left me alone. So then the administrators were looking for a head of the department, since she'd been the head of the department. And they brought in several people to interview. And I showed them around, and I thought there were several that might have been all right.
What year was this now, Vera?
This was about well, it was 50. It was because it was right that year. It was the fall of 50. Then she was going to come on.
Right.
And then Dean Gorman, who was my dean at that time, the College of Education, Frank Gorman, came over one day into the Quonset hut, and he didn't usually come into the Quonset hut. And he found me, and he took me by the hand, and he said, "Vera, I want to talk to you." And I thought, oh my goodness, what have I done? You know, it sounded serious. And we went out into the gym in the Quonset hut and sat on one of those old benches. And he said, "We want to ask you something." He said, "I think I know you're going to go on to your master's degree." And I said, "Yes, I plan to start this summer." And he said, "Well, if you'll promise us that you'll get that master's degree, we will make you the head of the department of women's physical education." So that was something I couldn't refuse, and I thought, wow, this is just my big chance.
Yeah.
And so I went to school, and I went to the University of Illinois at Champaign-Urbana every summer in the heat, and went to classes. And I remember thinking in the middle of the night sometime, what if I'd flunk out? What would I tell Dean Gorman?
Yeah.
But luckily, I didn't flunk out, and I became the head of the department soon after that, before I got my master's.
Well, did you get any more help?
Well, yeah, we had a part-time person that I knew of, somebody who I danced with. I had been a member of the dance company at UNL when I was down there.
Was that when you got into dance at
Yes.
UNL?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
And the interesting thing about that, I was going to mention that because I'm proud of it. There were 100 people who tried out for the dance company that year, and they took 6. And I got
Vera
to be
was
one of them.
Well,
And
that tells you something.
Well, I was really proud of that, and it was one of my big highlights. So one of the girls that I had danced with in the in the orchestras down there, they used to call it orchestras, was in town. And so I asked Dean Gorman, I said, I think she would be great. I'll teach the sports, we'll let her teach the dance, since she's mostly dance. And I'll be the head of the department then, you know, and just this will work out fine. And we couldn't get somebody full-time at that time for some reason or other. So she came in and taught the dance, and that went from 1.5 people to 3 full-time people when I left in 4.5 years.
Very small faculty meeting.
Yeah, yeah. But
getting bigger.
Yeah. In the meantime, though, I always found that when I had something I wanted to do, I had an innovative idea, or I wanted to progress, that I went to the right people, and I always got encouragement, and they said, great, go ahead.
Who were some of those people that you recall that helped you there?
Dean Gorman was one of them,
Wonderful
of course.
guy.
He said yes to a lot of things. And another man that I don't remember his first name, Mr. Hoff?
Charlie Hoff.
Charlie Hoff was one of the, I don't even know what his job
Business
was.
manager of the university.
All right. Well, he was a wonderful influence in this university. And he believed, I think as a lot of them did, in young people.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Charlie Hoff was probably one of the reasons why I got to be head of the Department of Physical Education. And he had a wonderful secretary, these people behind the scenes, Beth Christensen, I thought of her name. She was a wonderful secretary, and she was one of these people that if you needed to know something, you asked her. And she was interested
They
in
had some knowledgeable secretaries around here at that time, didn't they?
It was really wonderful.
Well, now, here you are department head, you're teaching all the sports. When did you get across to the other side? You had somebody else doing that, Vera.
Well, I finally I decided to get married, and my husband wanted to move up to his hometown, and so we decided to make that move, and so that meant leaving the University of Omaha. So I did leave for 9 years. So see, I've only been here this is my 31st year. So at that time then, we had 3 sons.
I see.
And Dean Gorman and I kept track of each other every Christmas with our Christmas cards. And
where was home now? Where did you move to?
well, I was in Wakefield, Nebraska at that time.
Still in Nebraska?
Yeah. And he, on one of his Christmas cards, about 8 years after I'd left, he said, "We're looking for a dance person for next year. Why don't you apply?" I don't know if he was serious or not, but I came and I applied. We decided to move back to Omaha. And I think we thought it was going to be a kind of a temporary job, and it's lasted, this is my 26th year.
It lasted 20-something years. So putting it all together, it's been 30-something.
Yeah, right.
Well, that was quite a change, though. You went from teaching and busyness and this to being a mother and a housewife, huh?
Right, and it was a drastic change.
Oh, yeah.
It really was, because I found that one of the things that made teaching the thing that I think most teachers realize it's all about are the students.
Oh, yeah.
And I had some wonderful students, not only in those first years, 1950 to 54. I was so young, I was 22 when I was head of the department here. And those young students, who were just a year or 2 younger than I was, gave me so much support and encouragement, and I'll never forget them. And I started a teaching minor, a PE teaching minor, soon after I became head of the department. And I remember our first minor who graduated was Marilyn Rogers, and her name is now Raup.
Ah.
And she was a tennis champion in the state of Nebraska, and she knew, I know, a lot more about sports than I ever knew, but she never let on, and she was my biggest supporter and was so enthusiastic.
Isn't that nice?
Yeah. She is now the head of physical education in the West Side Public Schools.
Is that right?
Yes.
Is that right?
And then we started a major in physical education for women, and we worked with the men in some of the courses that they had, because they had a major already for men. And our first, I sampled my major after what I had gone through at UNO at that time. It was just about exactly the same thing, but we had much smaller staff.
Oh, sure.
And I remember my first major who graduated was Mary Dale Myers, and she got a job in Chicago, Illinois in a YMCA. And another major who was an independent. There were a lot of Greeks, and they were very strong on the campus at that time, 1950 to 54.
Yes, yeah.
But Bev was an independent, and she then graduated and got a job in Denver teaching physical education. So our people got good jobs, and I was really proud of them.
Well, you really got things rolling at a very early age then.
Right. One of the things that they asked me to do was, we didn't have women's sports, of course.
No.
So they had some kind of an intramural program, and I guess it was just falling flat on its face, and Dean Gorman and everybody said, we want you to get an intramural program going for girls. So I got a council of girls, and really top-notch people. I'm sure Marilyn was one of them. And we decided the first thing to do was to change the name. I don't remember what it was, but we called it Omaha University's Women's Intramural Organization, OUWI, and that became a very well-known organization on campus. And I remember the Greeks had teams, I think there were 5 sororities, I don't know how many there are now, and the independents had teams, and basketball seemed to be our hottest item. And I remember some of that, we had the games in the early evening or late afternoon. And the Quonset hut, I haven't even talked about the Quonset hut. The Quonset hut, you know, goes like this.
Yeah.
And it was very small. The outside line of the basketball court was about a foot from the wall. And the wall then went up like this, so you could hardly stand there and watch. But we had the place crowded with people at those tournaments because they were so excited and interested in the tournaments.
And women getting into basketball, I suppose, too, generally.
Yeah, right. And I can remember some of the times with all around the basketball floor, there were people, fellas and gals, standing around cheering for their teams. And you know who was the referee?
No.
I was.
You're back to basketball again.
I was back to basketball again. I was sure glad I had 4 years of basketball training. But it was a scary proposition. But I never got booed. So I think things went pretty well. So that was a lot of fun, and we did a lot in women's intramurals at that time, and it was just a big thing. I remember the Coyotes and the Independents were some of the top teams very often, and it was a big fight to see who was going to...
Strong rivalry.
Yeah, really strong rivalry. And so that was that.
Now we're dealing with the early 50s, really, aren't we?
Right. Now, then I came back, and that was 1965. And there had been a building, a new room put onto the Quonset hut, in which I had a lot of my classes, but it still had a cement floor. And I did want to say that that Quonset hut was really something. In the summer, it was so hot we could hardly stand it. In the winter, it was so cold we could hardly stand it. And the thing about it was that there were, in the gym part, there were 4 heater blowers up above.
Yeah.
And we had to decide if I want to talk in class or have it warm in class.
You had a choice.
So I couldn't talk above the heater blowers. So sometimes we shut off the blowers, and then in between class, quick put them on. And I can remember once when it was really cold, I just said to the girls, I said, you just watch me. We're going to keep the blowers on. You just watch me, and I'm going to tell you what to do by signals. So at that time, I then, taught a lot of the dance and became the director of what later became the moving company. And that was another good organization that had a very close-knit bunch of people. And I was the only dance person, and I had 20-some people in the moving company, and we gave just as big concerts then as we do now. And I needed help. And I had a student, Shirley Newcomer was her name. She was a senior student and was good. She was good at taking charge of people, and she was good at choreography. So she did choreography her last year or two of school, and I thought, and then she went out to teach in the public school. She was a first grade or second grade teacher. And I said to Shirley, would you like to come back in the evenings and on weekends and help me with the moving company? And she said yes, she'd love to do that. And I could never have gotten along without Shirley Newcomer Taylor, who she finally became and had 2 sons. I remember Shirley and I, we didn't have a lot of good dancers because we only had a couple of dance classes and people didn't have the opportunity to be good dancers. We wanted men in the organization, and but we found that the men didn't move too well, So Shirley and I had kind of a joke. She did a whole dance with the men on their knees, and it worked out great. When they didn't have to move around on their feet, they looked great. So Shirley and I always said, is this one of those cases where we have to put them down on their knees? And she'd say, yes, sir. So that was one of the things. And then another night, I remember, it was 3 nights before a concert during the technical rehearsals, which were always hectic, We had a lot of students doing choreography in those days, and one of the students had come up with something that when we saw it on the stage, it just didn't work. And Shirley and I sat there and looked at each other and, wondered about that piece, and we knew something had to be done. So we told those dancers to stay there, and we sent everybody else home. And we worked till 1 o'clock that night and re-choreographed that dance. Shirley and I did. And I remember we thought it needed some more spark, so we had most of the rest of the moving company in the wings with flashlights, and they blinked the flashlights off and on for a strobe light effect. And it became quite a good dance at the end.
It just sounds to me, from what you've been sharing so far, that in your home life and in your work, you have had a lot of fun.
Yes.
Enjoyed yourself,
yes,
as well as worked hard.
Yes.
Now, in all of this, you did some more graduate work, didn't you?
Yes, I did some more graduate work.
When did that come along?
Well, the master's degree I got in '54. And when my last son, I have 3 sons, and when my last son left home for college, I decided it was time to go do my doctoral work. And Dr. Flynn was the head of the School of HPER at the time, and he was very encouraging. And so I hated to leave my house, but I did rent it out. I went down to Texas Women's University, where they had a very good dance major, and I had worked there for about 7 summers before that. I'd teach here the first 5 weeks, and then just so I could afford to go down there the second 5 weeks and pick up some hours. And then I took off 14 months and did the rest, and then did my dissertation here during my year when I came back, and got my doctorate in December of '82.
Wow. You were a busy girl.
In dance, that was,
yeah.
Yes.
Now you moved completely into dance, really, haven't you?
Yes, right.
Now, as you reflect on this, one thing I like from what you've said is how much you liked and enjoyed and depended and respected the students involved. You've been here 30 years plus now. From those very early days to now, do you feel, and I often ask the people that do this with me. There's any change in the students? Are they the same? Do they have different outlooks? Are they about the same to you as when you first started working with them?
That's a really interesting question, because I've thought about that a lot. I think they were wonderful then, and they're wonderful now. They are such upbeat, sharp people to a great extent. During the 60s, some of those qualities got kind of covered over by torn jeans and, you know, bands around the hair, long hair, and that sort of thing. But I still think that those people were standing up for things. And I think that our students do stand up for their rights, and they have, on the whole, a great deal of confidence. And I think that working with students of that caliber for 30 years has been one of the greatest experiences of my life. And it's all the students. It's not the buildings, it's not the faculty, it's not the meetings and the memos and all the things that we have to do. It's when you get into that classroom and you're with those people. They're wonderful. And I walk around my classes and I try to look at everybody's face every day and see how they're doing. And I've gotten a lot of people. Right now I'm quite a mother figure to a lot of them, maybe a grandmother figure. And through the years, even when I was 22, they came to me with problems, and it's been a wonderful experience. And
you know, you're saying that, Vera, reminds me of that teacher that you had who was so wonderful in your 5th and 6th and 7th grade, and sounded like she taught and pushed you individually.
Right.
And that you liked that individual instruction mode through most of your teaching life as best you can with even bigger numbers.
Right. I think so.
So you get to know your students pretty well, didn't you? Or haven't you?
Yeah, I try to.
Yeah.
And through 30 years, it must be thousands of students that have passed through the classes, and there's so many that are so dear to me. And I feel bad about some of those that I didn't quite get to know very well. I remember just a few weeks ago, one of the students left my class, and I just saw her mat on the floor, and I said, "Who was here?" because I was concerned. And the girl on the next mat said, "Oh, it was Heather. She was crying, and her parents kicked her out of their home this weekend." And I really felt bad about that I didn't know about it and that I couldn't give her some support. And when she came back, I talked to her a little bit about it, and she said she was okay now. So that was fine. But through the years, these students, well, I was just thinking about, I teach a methods class in teaching dance and rhythms to children.
Yeah.
We go out to St. Richard's Elementary School, and we were just out there last Friday and Thursday. And I have men and women in this class who teach little children from preschool to 6th grade dance and rhythms. And I say, you know, it isn't the dance and rhythms that's so important, it's what we're doing with the children. I want you to be aware of what's happening to the children. And I sat there and I just had this big smile on my face. This class of 4 teachers were team teaching a preschool class.
Oh my.
And one of the big guys was walking along holding this little girl's hand. And he was skipping and hopping in the circle and doing all the things that everybody else in the preschool was doing, and the other teachers were too. But this little girl had attached herself to that guy, and he held her hand through the whole time.
Yes. Nice.
And I thought, you know, that's really neat. And another thing that happened on one of those days too was in one of the smaller classes, a lot of times the children sit down on the floor and don't want to participate. You know, they're afraid or they don't feel quite well or something.
Yeah.
And so this happened, and one of the girls who was observing saw that. She didn't have to do this. She went over, the teachers were busy, she went over, sat beside that child, and pretty soon that child was in her lap, and she had her arms around that child. And I thought, you know, wow, how did she know that's just what that child needed, just a big hug?
Isn't that? Wonderful.
And that's how it's gone through 30 years of just wonderful, wonderful people that have enriched my life. Now I want to tell you, do I have time to tell you about my 3 sons?
Why, yes you do.
All right, I'd like to just say something about my 3 sons because I was a single parent. I've been a single parent for over 20 years.
Have you?
And we have gone through a lot together, but it went quite smooth. And they've turned out to be just beautiful people. And I just want to tell you about 2 little things that happened that were kind of tearjerkers to me. I worried about junior high years, especially when the 2 older ones who were 2 years apart were going to be in junior high together. And everybody always said, you know, junior high is a tough time. You don't understand these kids, you know. And it just didn't happen at our house. We just seemed to flow right through junior high. And one of the things, I think one of the proudest moments of my life was one day, somehow or other, I saw in one of my boys' billfolds, who was in junior high, mind you, my photograph. I just about sat down and cried.
Yeah.
Because I thought, you know, who's going to put their mother's photograph in their album when they're in their teenage years?
In that in-between age.
And the other thing was when I went to Texas Women's University, they were the support behind me because my mother was gone then. And I was living in an apartment on the campus in a high-rise. And one of the first nights I was there, my children realized it was hard for me to leave my job, my house, and everything.
Oh, indeed.
And to go off like that. And one of the first nights I was there, I got a call from the front desk, and they said, "Come down, there's something here for you." And I thought, oh my goodness, what's this, you know? And I went down, and here was the most beautiful bouquet any mother could ever expect to have. It was from Tom, Greg, and Paul. Good luck, and we're behind you all the way.
Couldn't be a nicer present. Or a more timely one.
Pardon?
Or a more timely one.
Or
too.
a more timely one, yeah. So that's how they are important in my life too, very important. They've always been first in my life. And one of them's in San Francisco. He's a filmmaker.
Oh, is he?
One is in New York City. He just graduated with his master's from Fordham University, and he's teaching high school in Lower Manhattan now. And the other son is a lover of animals and plants and the outdoors, and he lives on a little acreage out in Papillion. So
you have one close to home.
I have one close to home, but I'm very proud of all 3 of them.
Well, it sounds from what you've said, Vera, that you're close to them, and that's why they're close to you. And you shared a wonderful life together for so many years.
Yes, we really have.
Now, you know, we've got a few minutes left here, Vera. And if you look back over the years, some things have happened to us as a university beyond the pale of what we've talked about that have changed things. We had a change from the University of Omaha, as you and I knew it, to the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Remember the turmoil and discussion around that? What was your feelings at that time? Because you'd been at UNL, you knew that place, but you were here now. What?
Yes, I think we were all a little skeptic. Very skeptic, because we didn't know what it really held for us in the future, if it was going to be good for the university or not. And from our point of view, we had seen, some of us especially had seen the closeness, the close-knit family, the wonderful part of being a small university.
Yes.
And here we were to become a much larger university and expand to a great degree. As I look back on it now, I realize that the good old days in the 1950s and so forth, we could really get a lot of things done easily, and people were supporting us a great deal. Now we're so big, people don't really, I don't know, somehow or other we've lost something. And
maybe it's the price of bigness.
Maybe so, but I suppose it's a better school for students. I will hope that it is.
Yeah. But it's not as easy to get things done, you're saying, right?
Right. Can I tell you about one little story that, do I have a little time?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
One little story that I forgot to mention, I think it's such a good story. When I was first the head of the department in the little Quonset hut, the men had just moved out of the Quonset hut because the field house had just been built when I came. So we had 2 locker rooms and 2 offices and a gym, and there was a cleaning person who came at night. Well, we never saw the cleaning person, and we had 2 locker rooms with all of these students. Sometimes I had 70 students in a class.
Oh my!
I think we must have had a budget crunch sometime in there.
We often have that.
Yeah, I remember having 70 students in a volleyball class once. Well, I got to thinking we really need somebody in the locker rooms. So I went to Dean Gorman and I said, Dean Gorman, could we have a locker room lady who could be there all the time? And he said, I think that's a good idea. Great, let's do it. And then she can clean, and she can clean between classes, and it was wonderful. Well, I got Mrs. Winiger. And one day, Mrs. Winiger, when she got through cleaning the gym, sat down at the piano and started to play. And wow, could that woman play. She was just all over the keyboard, and she was playing popular songs, she was playing oldies, she was playing everything. And I went out to see what this was all about. And here was Mrs. Winiger, our locker room lady, playing like this. And she told me, well, she played by ear. So I said, I went back to my office and I thought about that a little bit. I thought, you know, we could really use a good pianist for our dance classes. So I went to Dean Gorman again. I said, I have another good idea. And I said, we have this locker room lady who plays a mean piano. And I'd like to have her when I have my folk dance class, my square dance class, my modern dance class, my rhythmic activities class for the teachers, you know, and wherever we need a pianist, I wonder if Mrs. Winiger couldn't come out and at that time be our dance accompanist, and maybe we should pay her a little bit more or something. So Dean Gorman again said, great idea, Vera, good, supported me to the hilt. And so that's what we did, and it was one of the best solutions we ever had to some of our problems. We had a great pianist. I would go out before class, and if she didn't know the song, I hummed it for her. And if I could hum it, she could play it.
Isn't this great? Well, maybe that says something about the togetherness aspect of this university in those days.
Right. The other thing I want to say was, you know, over in the administration building, that the only building we really had on campus with the cupola, with the lights on it every night, we had the faculty dining room.
Yes.
And the faculty all ate there every noon. And I remember that all of the women on the faculty of the University of Omaha could sit around one table. we had, I think the men had 6 tables.
That spoke to other things, didn't it?
That spoke to other things, but I remember that, and when I came back in '65, I thought to myself, I'm sure this has changed, and it really was amazing how many women were on campus again.
Vera, we've got a couple of minutes or so left, and you put things together so beautifully. We don't have much left to say, but I guess as you look back, what would be were there any things you'd want to change? Any things that should be different? Has life gone the way you've been happy with it all the time? You seem to adjust so well to whatever comes.
Oh, sure, there were a lot of tough times. There were a lot of tough times.
Both personally
and here, yes. But I think when it all comes down to it, my family, my 3 sons who stood behind me and still support me, and we are very close, and then all those thousands of students who touched my life are the great big thing that I will always remember. And someday when I retire, as I said before, I'm not going to miss the buildings and the faculty meetings and all of that, but I'm going to miss that contact with those students.
Vera, I can't tell you how nice it's been to have you come by and visit with us, because you've shared your personal life and your professional life so beautifully. And I think it's a memento of your time here that'll be useful and have an enjoyment to your 3 sons and to the many sons and daughters that have been your students here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been fun to do this.
We've been visiting for the past, just about an hour with Dr. Vera Lundahl, a member of our faculty here at the university. And it's a part of a series, as I told you at the other end of the hour, what we call Reflections in Time. The reflections of various people, their look at the university and their personal lives over the years. Thank you.